Hi everybody, this is John Oates here in Nashville, Tennessee at the amazing Lane Motor Museum. If you've never been here and you happen to be in Nashville, you have to come see it. It's incredible. And today we're going to talk about the fabulous British sports car, the MG. Here's one of the early examples. This is from the 1930s, and the company actually started in 1924. And they started with small, lightweight sports cars. I have a soft spot in my heart for small, lightweight sports cars because when I was a kid in high school, I got to drive MGs and Triumphs and the small cars that came out of England. And, you know, the cars that you drive when you're a kid, you know, it always kind of sticks with you. So I just love MGs and what they've, what they've represented in the world of sports cars. So as you can see, in the 1930s, they had bicycle fenders and real skinny wheels, skinny tires, but they were very agile and they were very high performance for their time. And it kind of led to MG having their own saying. They use the phrase "safety fast" because the cars could outperform the other cars that were on the road during those days. So you'll see as we go through some of the cars. This is a car from the 1940s. This is an MGTC, and this is the car that really caused the sports car explosion in America, because during World War II, when a lot of the GIs were stationed in England at the various airfields and getting ready for D-Day and for the invasion of Europe, they saw these cars driving around on the little country roads in England, and they were really impressed. And after the war, a lot of the GIs brought these cars back to America. And it started really a craze, and MGs became super, super popular. So this was kind of the beginning of the MG craze in the USA. And as the cars, as they went through, they evolved a bit. They got a little bit more streamlined. As you can see, the bicycle fenders kind of got molded into the car, but essentially they were still based on the original idea and the original cars that came from the 1930s. So this is a TD, and this is a TF. So the T series were really just basically an evolution of a certain design, and they were very, very popular in America. And a lot of people raced these cars. They would take them to the track. You could drive them from your house to the racetrack, slap some numbers on the side with some tape, put some tape on the headlights, and race them, and then drive home. And so there was a real. They were super, super popular. As we go down here, we're getting to something that really kind of changed the MG company. It was a real revolutionary change. This is the MGA. The MGA was introduced in 1955, and as you can see, compared to the MGT series that we just looked at, the MGA is a completely new idea. It still had a ladder frame, and it was still a body-on-frame car, but what they were able to do was widen the frame and lower the cockpit and lower the center of gravity down into, to make it a bit lower, to make it handle better. And as you can see, a completely different redesign of the body and the whole concept of a streamlined sports car. It was designed by a guy named Sid Evner. And it really, I think he had a lot of inspiration from the Italian cars that were being built in the 1950s, the Ferraris and Maseratis and Alfa Romeos. And he wanted a car that looked modern. So this was absolutely the first time that MG really stepped into the kind of the modern sports car world. The car was a bit heavy, but they had aluminum hoods, aluminum doors, aluminum trunks to try to keep the weight down. This particular car, well, I'm a little bit prejudiced because it's mine, but this particular car is a very unique example of it. It's called the Twin Cam. This car was only built for 2 years, in 1958 and 1959, and what had happened was the MGs were getting beaten quite regularly by the lightweight sports cars in the European road races, especially the Porsches. The Porsche 356 were super lightweight, and they couldn't really compete with the regular MG. So they stuffed a big engine into this car with the hopes that they could then compete racing-wise. Because in those days, and even today, racing sells cars, because winning in races has always traditionally been a way that a car company could advertise and sell their cars. So this MG twin cam was built. There were only 2,111 to be exact built. Today there's about 800 of them in the world that are still running. This one is a very, very authentic example. It was restored in the 1980s, and then again in the 1990s, and then it was put into cold storage. So after its restoration, when it came out of storage in the 2000s, and I was able to purchase it, it was essentially as authentic and as original as possible, really. So it's a real time capsule, this car. It's a lot of fun to drive, and it has really, really good performance. It did have a bad reputation when the car first came out, because the engine was it was such a high performance engine that a lot of people weren't using the right gas, and they would have some engine problems, and it gave the car a bad reputation. But they sorted it out, but then it was too late, because the MG company was ready to move on. And move on to things like this. This is the MG Midget. Is this a Sprite? I'm sorry, this is an Austin Healey Sprite, which is pretty much the same as an MG Midget. Just the Austin Healey company and the MG were basically sister companies. And so they built this little car. This became quite popular in America as well. Really entry-level sports car, but a lot of fun to drive, really low-powered, but kind of cool. They made an earlier one than this called the Bug Eye Sprite, or Frog Eye Sprite. It had the lights that sat up like this. So then the company really needed to move to a much more modern approach, and they basically introduced the MGB. Now this is an MGB GT because it has a hardtop, we don't have an MGB Roadster here. But they made many more of the MGB Roadster. And the difference between the MGB and the MGA was mostly the fact that the MGB was a monocoque construction. So it was no longer a ladder frame. It was an actual monocoque, which means that the body is a stressed member. The body, the engine, and the drivetrain are all stressed members of the car. And so it gives it a different type of rigidity and a much more modern performance. It was taken from airplane construction. Airplanes are constructed basically in a monocoque style. So the MGB was here again a brand new innovation, and it became super, super popular in America. There are probably more MGBs on the road in America than any other sports car. So, and I had an MGB back when I was in high school, and it's probably the thing that got me, kind of inspired my love for MGs. So the MG company kind of started to wither away as we got towards the 90s, and no longer began to import cars to America, although they still made cars along with their partnership with Rover, and then again with a Chinese company. And finally they created this, the MGF, I believe it is. It was never imported to America, so you'll probably never see one here, except here at the museum. And it was their attempt to basically modernize the brand, and eventually it just kind of fell by the wayside. I hope you enjoyed this virtual field trip and walk around the Lane Motor Museum in Nashville, Tennessee.